Hey, you're now tuned in to UnderDawg Talk. I'm your host, Eric Jones Jr., the underdog with the heroic heart, and I have conversations with successful underdogs. And today I have Miss Katrina Simmons. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little hot. It's hot outside today. Before we get into today's episode, tell you guys about the upcoming events for UnderDawg Talk. We have a vendor event that we will be at tomorrow, July 8th. Well, I guess this might be old. I might drop this today. I don't know. But July 8th, be over 50 vendors at P30 where we have the podcast, and I'll be interviewing people. So you have a business. You're a successful woman. Everything kind of looks like it's going good. Where was life at before that? What were you doing? Was this always your thought to be an entrepreneur, or did it just come up like later in life?
Yeah, absolutely not. I never, ever thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. I grew up and always thought that I would be going to law school. And that was always my passion. That was where I was in life. I knew I would always be going to law school. And, well, between that and being a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, but I gave that part up later.
I'm glad. Are you still a Dallas Cowboy fan?
No, I am not.
Okay, I'm glad you gave that up.
I am definitely not. But yeah, so I went to college. I'm born and raised from Tennessee. It's a very small town called Elmwood. So I always say our claim to fame in Carthage is I'm from where Al Gore's from. So, Vice President Al Gore. So, he literally grew up down the street from me.
Okay.
But that's really about it. Very small town.
Understand.
But I always had the ambition that I wanted to become an attorney. I wanted to practice law. And then graduated college with my criminal justice degree. Decided to move to Indy with my ex-husband and start our family. And before we went to law school, I wanted to know the inner workings and understand exactly the documentation and everything, every part I could about law. So I decided to go and get my paralegal degree. Since I already had a bachelor's, didn't take long, so it only took like 9 months, and I got that. And then I took a pause for a second. I worked in my career, and, life just takes over for a bit. And I always say I've done every part of law known to man, pretty much, without having to go to law school to be a JD. I do have my master's in legal administration, so I've managed law firms. I do almost everything an attorney can do, minus going into the courtroom. So I'm not an active practicing attorney, but I am a legal representative and things of that nature. And even getting into my company, Gifted Minds, came much later. I started Gifted Minds in 2013, I think it was. The year before, I had actually started a private investigation security company with my ex-husband, and knew nothing about business. I have no business background at all. I didn't even know how to write a business plan or anything. And I had people coming to me in my church asking me to review their business plan for a new startup company. And when I was going through it, I was like, well, this doesn't sound right. So I would go in, I revamp it, and I didn't give too much weight to it at first. And then I saw my ex-husband, he was interested in starting this security company, and I was like, let's do it. So I learned how to start a business from the ground up. Still, I was supposed to be the silent part. I was never supposed to be a part of anything else. And then in 2013, I always say God speaks to you at the times when you are most stressed out. When you have so much going on and you don't even know which way is up. And I remember having a conversation with a dear friend of mine. He had just started his own practice. He's a therapist. And he finally stepped out and started his own. I've been telling him to do this forever. And I remember sitting at my kitchen table, incredibly stressed. And it felt like God tapped me on the shoulder and said, I want you to help people to start their businesses. And I ignored that for a second. I was like, yeah, no, that's not happening. I don't even see that happening. But it stuck with me for a bit. And then I was working, this was in January, I was working part-time doing taxes. And it was like 6 a.m. I'm driving out to Mooresville to go do taxes. And I remember it clear as day like another bell went off. Your company is going to be called Gifted Minds, and your mission is to help people with their gifts, bring them to the world. I literally spoke that into the voice memo on my phone. God has literally laid every piece of my business, because I didn't know a thing about it, never wanted to have a business, always thought it was way too much trouble. I was going to be an attorney, have my own practice, of course, but I wanted to be on the Supreme Court. I didn't care anything else about trying to start any type of businesses. And then as we progressed in having Gifted Minds, I started on the nonprofit side. I was doing faith-based organizations and helping them to do fundraising, grants, really big on proper legal formation, because a lot of times, especially churches, they don't start properly. So I would go in and revamp. I was already doing this in my own church, and God told me I needed to just do that with other people, and I listened. And so when I formulated Gifted Minds, I started in that realm. But in about 2018, I started considering retirement from law, because I was over it. Like I said, I've done every type of law. My ultimate goal was to be on the Supreme Court, but when I practiced, I wanted to do criminal defense and represent athletes, professional athletes. And before I retired, I was managing a criminal defense firm, and I did NFL concussion cases. So that told me, again, driving home one day, that I'd done everything that I set out to do. It just looked different. And that was enough for me to realize that it was time to close that door on that side. And God was pushing me in a different direction. So in 2018, when I finally was like, okay, I'm going to do this, it took some time. Met a dear friend of mine who's my business partner. He really pushed me to help me with that, because when I met him, he told me that he was already an entrepreneur, been doing it for about 13 years. And I said, I would really love to do it full time like that. And he was like, well, I'm going to help you get there. So within a year he did. And I was fully able and ready to do that. And when God calls you, he not only equips you, but he sends the people that you need around you too. So by the end of 2019, I was more than ready to come on out. And went straight into it. And yeah, scary moves, especially going into a pandemic. I didn't even know it was going to happen. Yeah. But God is faithful, and he did everything he said he was going to do. And I haven't missed a beat. So yeah.
I love it, because I think sometimes we miss that voice, or miss God telling us what to do, and we go on with our own plan and say, oh, I'm going to do it this way, and then you circle back around and you at the same spot that you were at. So that's good that you listen. So not to get into church, but how do you was there any certain prayers, was there any certain things you asked God, or it was just God hey, this is what I'm telling you? That was
it. It was, hey, this is what I'm telling you. Yeah. Because you have to really hear that still small voice. I wouldn't have known what to pray for, because that was never in my thought process. And during the time I was told that, like I said, I was going through a lot of personal issues. I would have never thought in a million years that he would have tapped and said, you need to start a business right now. But he calls you during those times, because it's to walk in trust and faith. And as I've grown, I have really learned a lot to make sure that I listen well. So now I don't make a move until I am 100% positive that this is what God wants me to do. But that took time. That took growth to be able to hear that and understand that fully, because oftentimes we will ignore that voice. Yeah. But God made it real clear when I was pondering retirement. I had first said I was going to retire at the age of 45, I think I said. And at that time I was 35. And then I'd scaled it back to say I was going to do it maybe at about 37. And it was so funny, because in 2019, God was like, if you don't quit this job, I'm going to have you fired. Like, it was just so clear. Like, he was like, I've already told you what you need to do. You're already ready to do this. It's walking out on that faith. And, but like I said, having people around you, because 2019 I lost my biological father. He passed away. I was handling all of his business stuff. He was an entrepreneur. And he and I had been talking about going into another business together later in life and things of that nature. And I figured out that that's where I've really gotten my drive from when it comes to entrepreneurship was from him. And the last conversation that we actually had was talking business and understanding, where that passion was really growing from. And when he passed away, that was my final, it's time. You need to go ahead and do this. So I feel like God spoke to me with so many different pieces. Not all of them were happy. Yeah. But I listened. And like I said, he told me if I didn't quit that job, he was going to get me fired. And so I was like, you know what, let me go ahead and just come out of here.
And then going into entrepreneurship during the pandemic, how was that? Because, like, you had to be at home, you couldn't be around people, it was virtual. So, because a lot of people started businesses or started stuff, I definitely took advantage of starting a business, getting real focused on the podcast and things of that sort. So how was it being a new entrepreneur in the middle of pandemic and trying to figure those things out? Was it easier to maybe focus because you couldn't go nowhere?
It actually skyrocketed my business because my business is formed around legal foundation of establishing a business. That's what Gifted Minds is all about now. I put all of that legal background into the company when I redeveloped it. And I pulled from everything I'd known to help people be able to structure even their smallest of businesses in the way a corporation would. And so when the pandemic hit, there were only 2 months that I didn't make any revenue. That was January and February, before we shut down. That was because of myself. That wasn't because of anybody else. Because I was overthinking. I thought I had to have everything perfect. And it took push from my accountability partner to be like, you're not making any money. You need to do something to make money now. To get it out there. And once I did it, and I started with my Sunday strategy sessions, my videos, giving those little tips, which were so uncomfortable at first. But once I did that, skyrocketed. I met my revenue goal of 6 figures for 2020. I didn't miss a beat. And it was amazing because people did have the time. They took the time that even if they already had a business, they were like, okay, now I need to get my stuff together. And if they didn't have a business, they were like, okay, I'm ready to take some time to pivot out of corporate and put more time into my own stuff and become an entrepreneur. And so it really, really helps so much to be able to help people from the ground up either protect their legacy or expand that. And it's just been up since then.
So, question, how did you find those accountability partners? Were they already people you knew, or was it you met them at an event or anything? How did you get those, because having an accountability partner for not just business, for life, just in general, is always a good thing. And I think as up-and-coming entrepreneurs, you always want to have somebody to keep you accountable, because life going to punch you in the face, distract you, and then you're going to get off your whatever you're supposed to do. So how did you go about that?
So mine was a little different because my initial accountability partner, he still is, was my boyfriend at that time. So we started dating each other first. It was not business related, but we saw that it melted together so easily and effortlessly, and he helped me propel that business forward like no other. So most of the people that I was getting around me were connections through him to start. And I am so grateful to that, because doing it by myself was much harder because I didn't know where to start. And I always say, when you start a business or you go full-time from corporate to entrepreneurship, that's a mental change, like a legit mental change, but it also is a physical change. There's so many things you have to transfer and switch that is I had to change my wardrobe. I had to change the way I looked. You know, it was a lot different, but I'm glad I had somebody that could help mold that, because I wouldn't have known. And even going to networking events and whatnot, I'm not a person that is like uber social. So I mean, it's hard. It was harder for me to break out of that shell to make those new connections. Mm-hmm. So I always say, go and listen to who God sends you. Most of my accountability partners are male, and that's a big reason, is because of my personality type. So I can go to them and I'm like, hey, I have this idea. They don't hesitate to tell me if I'm wrong, and I love that. Whereas sometimes some of my female friends, not so much all the time. I have a couple now, but not always. Yeah. But it usually, you have to figure out who is going to make you feel the most uncomfortable. That's the person that you need to hold you accountable, and make it vice versa. Make sure you're growing with one another. But yeah, I did it a little unconventionally because it was a romantic partner. And like I said, we have a business together. We still have a business together. I have a business with my ex-husband. And everybody's like, how in the world do you have businesses with all your exes? Yeah. Like, just happens out that way. But no, it's good, because starting new entrepreneurship or in there full time, you have to wipe the slate clean. Yeah. And it gets a little lonely at first. Yeah. I tell people that a lot. Ooh, I'm like, that's a big undertaking when you're going into entrepreneurship. Even coming out of corporate into it, or just starting a new side gig or whatever, not everybody's going to support you. And especially your friends and your family are not.
Yep, they not.
Like, that's just what it is. So I have gotten to a place now where I have a more expanded circle of people that are in entrepreneurship, in different businesses, or in different industries. But that took a while to build. It took a long while to build, because not every shoe fits. Yeah. Not every personality type fits. And you have to be very careful with your ideas and your business, because that's your baby. Not everybody's going to treat it the same. So you have to have people around you that look at your stuff just as much as they would look at theirs in the same way.
Yeah, definitely. I like what you said. Get around somebody that's going to make you uncomfortable. And it's not to make you uncomfortable where you shouldn't work. It's like, well, I'm over it. Like, it's like, if you want to be a millionaire, you get to hanging around a millionaire, and you see what they're doing, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing that, and you ain't doing it. It's making you uncomfortable, because there's certain habits that you're supposed to. And I don't know, with me, like, I got male and female, like, accountability partners, but I think for me, a male works more than a female for me, too, because, I don't know, I feel like I can out-sweet or out-talk, or talk.
Oh, I know.
So I think it's just finding out who's best for you, and who will put their foot on your neck in a good way. Yeah. And so I had a basketball game yesterday. Our team lost, and I was getting on one of the players, and he was like, he felt embarrassed because the other people was laughing. I was like, don't worry about what they got to say. I'm telling you what you could have done better, what you did good, what you could have done, so you can be better the next game. And he was looking at it wrong. He got upset, and he said something he shouldn't have said, and we kind of got into it. And then he texted me. He was like, and I texted him, I just want you to be better. Like, I'm going to come at you that way because I know you listening. Mm-hmm. And you don't worry about what your friends say, because that's entrepreneurship. If you worry about what your friends say, if you waiting for your auntie to buy your book, if you waiting for somebody to sign up for something that you grew up with, you're going to be waiting forever and ever. It just doesn't happen. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't know that at first. You're like, oh, I got this little business. Yeah, all my friends. No, because your friends aren't that audience.
No,
they might not like that. That little side that you have that's a little corny or whatever, those people are out there, but they might not be your friend, or however you look at it. And yeah, entrepreneurship is hard, and it's like you said, at first it'd be lonely, because everybody, you have some people that's trained and they just like 9 to 5. Nothing wrong with a 9 to 5, but entrepreneurs, and it's like, I don't really want to go there. Even when you're at your 9 to 5, you doing other stuff.
Yes,
I definitely have been at jobs on the computer, like I'm doing something else.
That's how I built 2 businesses.
Yeah, because if you're giving that company that you go to all your time, you're never going to build your own thing. So you got to some point figure out how you can do it on your own. So you got your business, you rolling, you said you was making six figures, you doing everything. Was there a moment once you started entrepreneurship where you said, nah, I'm good, I think I'm going to just go back to what I was doing?
Woo, last year. So, last year was very humbling for me because my revenue dropped substantially. Big reason was because I came out of my security company and gave it to my ex-husband. It was just too much to try to do, and went back into gift your minds, but it's a recession now. We have people scaling back, and I'm not recession proof. So it was more so, how can I pivot other than how am I going to go back? Because I knew in my mind, I am not going back to anybody's office. I'm not clocking in at nobody's desk. That's not happening. So I looked at it as, what do I want to do that would make me still happy and give me a cushion that wouldn't take up all my time? And so I started doing different applications. I was applying for some part-time work, various things in the legal world. And in January, I got a hit, and this is a job I didn't even apply for a beer hops company out of Washington State. And they were looking for somebody to manage their legal department and all of their contracts. And so I went with it. I was like, okay, this is cool, part-time work and great salary. I was like, hey, I can do that. Got the job. So I managed the legal department of the company. Is called John Haas, and I am literally the legal department. This company is about 99 years old. They have offices here in the U.S., in Australia, and the U.K. And I manage all of their contracts from my little house. Get all the great benefits, love it, fantastic. And I was like, that was a blessing because I have a cushion and I still get to do what I want to do. I can work today if I want to. I can work at midnight if I want to. It's just completely up to me. But I love the fact I'm learning so much, especially negotiating contracts in Germany and all these other countries with major corporations. Like, you think of any type of beer company, Anheuser-Busch, Michelob. I get to do all of that. And I love it. I love the doors that it opens up because I'm getting even better information to now sell in my business. So the contracts that I construct, I tell them what they need. And then I look at things and I'm like, okay, how can I apply this to some of my clients to sell? It just further grows. So in my opinion, it's not about going backwards, because my accountability partner now, he and I were having this discussion. It's not about going backwards. It's about creating a place or a cushion for yourself to where you can still do the thing that you're called to do, but you're not stressing yourself out financially to take care of home. And it's humbling. It is definitely humbling. Like I said, the past year was hard. It was not easy. It was frustrating because you're working incredibly hard. And you're like, okay, but I'm still not getting where I need to get to. You go from making almost $50K a month to barely scraping with 5. Now you're like, okay, now we got a big difference here. So you just have to think about it as, how can I pivot in a way that's still going to focus on what God has called me to do and what is still going to help me to grow. Don't think ever about that is making me fall backwards. Don't think about shelving it. It just may be a pause sometimes, because sometimes you may have to be like, okay, I can't fully do it this way right now, so I'm going to go hard over here for a second, but I'm coming back. Always go back to it. Make sure you don't leave it behind, because, like I said, God will make it uncomfortable if you get too comfortable. So.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like, I like that you have to pivot. I had to do that with the podcast, because I started off with a phone, and I got a laptop. Then I'm seeing everybody put the videos and stuff, so I'm like, okay, I need to get a studio. No, I made a commitment to do a podcast every episode every week. It was virtual, And then this year I was like, I'm gonna get a studio. Yeah, okay, that's cool. Okay, that's
She's
cool.
the only daughter, but she loves being the favorite. So
Oh, that's cool. I can edit. So I went, had the computer, went virtual, and then I was like, I need a studio. So I get a studio. Studio's perfect, but now I pivot to a different one because there's more of a team. Things that, I'm in a place where there's events that people come to that look like me, that I can network and stuff. So it's always smart to pivot, because sometimes your business is going to take that hit, or things ain't going to go right. You got, okay, what do I need to do? Because sometimes people get scared and want to go back to work, and it's like, going back to work ain't going to do nothing. Now, the income will help you, but your time is just getting taken away. That's like, I'm in the school system, and if I get the job, I won't be in a classroom, so I'll still have time. I'll still be able to do what I need to do with the kids, but I have time for myself as well. And I have to, when you're a teacher, you don't got time for nothing.
Exactly.
It's like, it'll drain you out. So it was very hard doing the podcast, being a dad, and being a teacher. It's like, yeah, I want to be in the schools and help kids, but I need to be able to do something else, because this is too stressful. Like, I would come home every day and want to take a nap. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, this ain't it. So I understand. So entrepreneurs that's listening, like, you got to make pivots. You can't. It's not always going to be a straight path. It's going to be, you got to make a left turn. You might got to make a U-turn to go back around and make a right turn, whatever it may be. So your business, it's been 4 years?
No, actually, I started it in 2012, 13.
Oh, so it's more.
Yeah.
So
I just didn't really utilize it like that until about 2018.
Okay. So what was the goal when you first started, and has that goal changed of what you want your business to be?
Yeah, well, some of it has changed. So as far as when I started, like I said, I was in the nonprofit sector more, and I was formalized more around what nonprofits need versus for-profit companies. But then I started noticing more and more for-profit people kept coming to me. So that was really a big surge of the push. But then also considering my legal background itself, I have an endless resource of information, and I know how to not only legalize your business, but make sure that nobody can take it. I know how to make sure you can franchise and expand it. So I wanted to be able to do that in a way that would help small businesses in general, especially our people of color, because we will start a hustle like no other. We all have there's not a single black person I know that doesn't have a hustle of some type. So when I hear about your hustle, the first thing I say is, we don't have hustles, we have businesses. So let's get this thing together. So that is always my drive to what I do now. I built my Gifted Minds model on the Bishop T.D. Jakes model, because I went to his Pastors in Leadership conference in 2012, I think it was, and mind-blowing. Changed my life. It was so amazing, because I got to see the inner workings of how he built both Potter's House and T.D. Jakes Enterprises. And that's what changed how I wanted to form Gifted Minds from the top down. And I still stick with that, of creating that enterprise. So, like I said, I have other ventures outside of Gifted Minds. Gifted Minds is, of course, my legal business consulting and strategy, but I have also now constructed Gifted Enterprises, and that's a team of people that comes with that. So I have a videographer, a photographer, brand strategist, a team. And we come together and have packages built for the person that is ready to start at this level and take it up another notch without having to go to 15 people. And then I have other business ventures that I've started with other partners. So it's branching more and more, but I'm still focused in the way that I want to make sure I'm creating a legacy for my entire family. And I'm making sure I'm doing that by still living and walking in my purpose of helping people to bring those gifts to the forefront, protecting their gifts, legalizing their gifts. So it changed, but it didn't, because I'm still following what God told me to do. I just took out some of the services, and now I just have consultants that I send the service to. So I always tell people, if somebody comes to you, especially if you're a consultant, and they're asking, hey, I need to get this done, never tell them no, or I don't do that. You always say, you know what, let me see what I can find out. Because that doesn't shut the door for you, it opens the door of opportunity. Because we can always find somebody for that person. So that means they're going to come to you more often with other people that are going to be like, hey, you know, this person helped me find this. I know they can help you.
Yep.
I get that from realtors, hairstylists, you name it. I like, once you're my client for life, is what I always say. Because there's not a time you won't need a person like me in your business. Doesn't matter how long you've had the business. Doesn't matter how old the business is. There's never a time that you won't need legal in your business. So having those relationships, because I love each and every one of my clients, those things are substantial to me, because I know that I'm adding that value. I'm helping them see that their dreams can be great, and it doesn't have to change because they can build the same type of enterprise that I'm trying to.
I love that. I love that. So I definitely gonna need to get in contact with you. But I always ask my guests to give 3 tips. I would say give 3 tips on what you were just saying. Because growing up in our community, everybody got a hustle. Everybody doing something, but everybody ain't legal. And I think that's where, not so much now, but maybe a few years ago, when people started doing entrepreneurs, like, oh, it's a hustle, it's just a hustle. But then you don't have that legal, and then the IRS come, or something else happens, or you done made up a name and you didn't get it copyrighted, and now you gotta owe some people. So I think that's very big to know that part. So give people that are entrepreneurs, just starting up, maybe first year entrepreneurs, 3 tips of what they should be doing, what they should do legally.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, legal formation. Get the business legally formulated. And one size fits all LLCs are not always it. So I know we see that all the time, is that, you know, and that's great. I love people showing their LLC certificates and whatnot. That's fantastic. However, it's not always the best choice. I've had people that come to me and they'll be like, well, I started this and I changed it over to this, and I'm doing this S Corp now and I'm going to change it to C Corp. And I'm like, why? It's just you. Why? You're not even making any money yet. You're putting yourself in a position to be double taxed for no reason. So know exactly what suits you best for your business and your industry, because if you don't have it set up correctly, you do run into those problems of, how am I going to pay these taxes? Am I paying the correct taxes? And things like that. That's number 1. Number 2, contracts. Get everything in writing. There's never a time you want to be out here with any type of business. I don't care if it's selling skincare. You need a receipt and a disclaimer. You know, so get it in writing. Make sure you have a contract for anything that is sold, a publication, if you have a website, anything. Business owners, get a contract. I push that so much because, again, we'll just jump out there and I'm like, okay, so where's the contracts? Partnerships are a huge thing. I just did a live about this on Sunday. And, you know, it's one of those things that I'm like, just because you're besties, just because you're all family, doesn't mean that you don't need a contract.
Yeah.
Get your contract. And then third, I would definitely say stop using your business, your bank account, your personal account as your business account, or vice versa. Make sure that you're making business purchases out of that business account and personal purchases out of the personal. And the number 1 question, well, how do I pay myself? Owner's draw, or put yourself on payroll if you are making a consistent amount of money. But whatever transfers you're making, make it from the business to yourself. Mark it as payroll. There you go. Paper trail. But stop going to Ruth Chris and, you know, partying up at the club and using your business account, or going to a Pacers game. No. So be careful with those things. Those are my top 3 because they all go back to the same thing. Legal for your taxes, legal for protection, legal for your legacy.
Yep.
Because if you're not doing any of those things, then you're not going to be able to have a successful business with longevity.
Yep, that I've heard all those things because I've had a trademark lawyer on, and I learned some stuff with that. So yeah, because I heard somebody say to make the paperwork, you gotta have the paperwork, and if you don't, because you see a lot of, especially like back in the day, a lot of artists, you would think they were making all this money and they weren't making nothing because they didn't have the right people to handle
review those contracts. If you don't know what it says, do not sign it.
Yep.
I tell people this all the time, and just because you print it off Google does not mean that template is fantastic and it meets your industry.
Yeah.
Because again, these things are not one size fits all.
Yeah.
You know, I teach a lot of courses on this. The trademarking, copywriting, I teach a lot of educational courses of how to do this, what to look for. Same with writing your contracts. How to do this, what you need to have in there to make it even legal. Like, a lot of people don't understand that, especially with a partnership agreement, there's so much that goes into that you can sometimes skate over and not fully understand for yourself.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to understand what that looks like. Even working for a major corporation like I am now, it blows my mind how they oftentimes don't know the difference between some of the agreements that need to be prepared to negotiate some of these deals. I have to tell them these things, even with other counsel in other states. And it's a lot of the times because they don't take the time to think about it, but also not every attorney knows business law. Yeah. So because I have the legal part and the administration part for a law office, I work with a ton of attorneys. I build law firms. I know how to do that from the front to the back. I teach them the same type of processes. Everything that I've learned to do in a law firm is easily transposed over to the regular small business owner. And working with both sides of it makes things so much better, because when I do have clients that need litigation or they have issues or any other type of concerns, I have a ton of referrals that I'll be like, hey, I got this going on here. I have great people in my network on that side because I've been in it for over 16 years. So you do definitely build a great network of people, but now I get to partner with them on the business side. So I have a couple of things I'm working on that, and I'm excited about coming up too.
So before you tell everybody how they can reach you, I need a quote. I always ask guests to quote. It could be your quote, it could be a quote you saw, but something that could help an inspiring entrepreneur.
Ooh, I'm going to have to think on that for 2 seconds. Like, you got me with that one. Oh. You know, I'm going to keep it very simple. What you do now is enough. Because a lot of times we don't celebrate the small victories. And especially as entrepreneurs, we'll think that, you know, we have so much going on and we never catch our breath. And I have learned that stressing myself out on invisible deadlines that nobody else knows about is not it. So stop making these unrealistic expectation lists for yourself. You are enough and you're doing enough. So just be enough. And each day there is a victory in that day. Doesn't matter even if you just checked an email or responded to a post. That's still a victory in that day. But do something every day in your business. One thing every day. Because you have to as an entrepreneur. You can't have, like you said, you can't have that 9 to 5 mentality to set it down on the table, because that's not the way it works. You'll be up at 2 a.m. like, oh my gosh, I thought about this. Here, let me put this down. You know, that's that consistency you have to grow into and make sure you have. But make sure that you're doing it. Just keep moving. Do it every day. But you are enough to make sure that you are making those wins. So.
Thank you. That, because as an entrepreneur and on the move, you forget, because then life happens and just little wins do matter. Sometimes you don't sit down and pat yourself on the back. Definitely. So let everyone know how they can reach you, and then I I always say a closing word. It made me think of church. But
closing remarks.
Yeah, closing remarks. But tell everybody how they can reach you, and then just
yeah, I got you.
Get us out of here.
Well, you guys can reach me at, on all social media handles at Gifted Minds LLC, and on LinkedIn at Katrina Simmons. I am in the process, and hopefully by the end of this month, we'll have my new website launched with all the courses and all of that. But every Sunday, I host what I call my Sunday strategy sessions. So you can access those, as well as my new upcoming podcast series about the Sunday strategy sessions. Those will be dropping in August. So a lot of new great things are on deck. But yeah, so I am so excited. Thank you so much for allowing me to come on and speak. It's been such a great pleasure. And if you ever need to get legal, you know, I am your girl. So like I said, keep your business and your safe legal.
And on that note, keep being great. I'm the underdog with the heroic heart. I'm Eric Jones Jr. I have to keep pushing for my kids. If I give up, what's that leave them with? Nothing. I have to understand that it's bigger than me. That it's not about me when I wake up and go to work. It's not about me when I'm reading to educate myself. It's not about me when I'm practicing my speeches. It's not about me. It's about my family.